Another day and another day where the Warriors have yet to make a move in NBA free agency, or really at all this offseason. So let's get Mike Dunleavy up out of bed and let him know that we want him to go out there and make a move. Make it happen. Get loud for me and like today's video. Smash that thumbs up icon so the Warriors can start making some moves here. What's going on, Dub Nation? You're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Tyler Smith. And on today's show, we're going to discuss the Warriors potentially signing one Malcolm Brogdon, who still remains a free agent, unrestricted in 2025. NBA insiders, multiple outlets across the league have reported that the Warriors have interest in Malcolm Brogdon, and he's still unsigned. So that's what we're going to talk about on today's show, as the Warriors, we know, have, some verbal agreements of sorts. Per Brett Siegel over at Clutch Points, he tweeted it out yesterday or the day before that many around the league believe that Al Horford and DeAnthony Melton have already agreed verbally to sign with the Golden State Warriors, but we know that the Jonathan Kuminga saga is what is holding all of the Warriors' moves up at this point. But we're not going to talk much about Kuminga today. It is really just embarrassing that the Warriors are letting him, kind of dictate their offseason and keep them in limbo for as long as they have. But that's all I'll say about that. We're going to focus today on signing Malcolm Brogdon because I do believe the Warriors do need some guard depth or more just secondary ball handlers off of that bench, really something they didn't have last season into the postseason. And Jake Fischer had said this about some interest around the league for Malcolm Brogdon. He said, for Malcolm Brogdon, I don't think Milwaukee is still a landing spot for him, especially after they brought in Cole Anthony on a buyout from Memphis. But teams like Sacramento, New Orleans, Minnesota, Golden State still have plenty of interest in Brogdon. And look, that's a kind of a vague, rumor. Like they always throw a bunch of teams in there. We've seen countless and countless tweets and quotes about this list of teams having potential interest in this player. Like it's all nonsense. But it is not, that's just one additional source there that we got saying that the Warriors have some interest in Malcolm Brogdon. Quick side note: that Bucks roster is absolute comedy. Joke that Giannis has to play with that group, and honestly, it's looking more and more, if they keep that roster the way that it is, that he's going to ask out potentially next offseason. But Brett Siegel then came in with this on Malcolm Brogdon that maybe gave us a little bit more reassurance, or at least confidence that the Warriors could go out and sign the former Sixth Man of the Year. He said another name worth mentioning that was connected to the Dubs in Las Vegas is Malcolm Brogdon. The former Sixth Man of the Year has held out in free agency to this point, despite multiple suitors contacting him in recent weeks. And that little last blurb there is what gets me about the Warriors and Malcolm Brogdon potentially having mutual interest here. It's interesting to me that Malcolm Brogdon is holding out this long in free agency, and the Warriors are the only team that is yet to make a move this offseason. And teams are clearly calling his phone. They're calling his agent up saying, hey, is Malcolm interested in coming over here? Well, he has yet to accept a deal to this point, so could we see the Jonathan Kuminga saga play itself out, and then Malcolm Brogdon makes a decision whether it be with the Golden State Warriors or somebody else? But it seems like he's keeping Golden State, at least in the back of his mind right now, as at this point, mid to late July, he is yet to sign with a team for whatever type of contract that he's going to command. And I'm not so sure what he's going to command a free agency, because the biggest knock on Malcolm Brogdon's game isn't anything that he does on the basketball court. No, it's the amount of time that he spends off of the basketball court, because this guy is constantly injured, man. 24 games played last year, and I get it. He's in Washington. He's in Portland. Like, he's in these places that are not conducive to winning by any means. If you look back to the last time that he was with a competitive roster back in 2022-23, yeah, he won the Sixth Man of the Year with the Boston Celtics, put up awesome numbers, 15 a night, 44% from three-point range. This has been a historically nearly 50, 40, 90 type of guy in this league. Uber efficient and can play good, solid defense on the other end as well. Look, if you can get Malcolm Brogdon on a veteran minimum deal, that is an absolute steal. Granted that he is healthy during that season. If Malcolm Brogdon is healthy and you get him on a cheap deal like this, that is just only going to make the Warriors a whole heck of a lot better next season. He could take some pressure off of Steph off of the bench. He can kind of run the second unit when Steph goes off of the floor and stuff like that. So it would be a huge bargain opportunity here for Golden State. And that's kind of the trend that we're seeing with the free agents that they're targeting. Al Horford, kind of a bargain guy, 40 years old, but he's still playing at a super high level. DeAnthony Melton, bargain guy, coming off of an injury, played well for them last season. Now he's looking at probably signing another vet minimum deal. Malcolm Brogdon, kind of the same things. Injuries are happening throughout his career, and now it looks like teams aren't willing to break the bank for him anymore. So if you can get him at the vet min and he's healthy, absolutely bring in Malcolm Brogdon. But like I said, he's only played 60 games one time that year that he won the Sixth Man of the Year with Boston in the last 6 seasons. He has That's the only year that he's qualified for end of season awards, if that rule was, a thing over these past 5 years, since 2019. One time he's qualified for awards. That's unacceptable, and especially for a Golden State team that is headlined by a bunch of aging veterans, guys who miss time pretty frequently during the regular season. Like, you're going to need as much regular season action from the complimentary players off of your bench as you possibly can get. Like, Steph needs to be taking some nights off. Jimmy needs to be taking some nights off. Even Draymond needs to be taking some nights off. Can't afford for the guys off of the bench and complimenting the team to be taking those same nights off as well. And especially can't afford for Malcolm Brogdon if you bring him in to miss a large chunk of time, which he has done many times throughout his career. So with that being said, there's some great things about Malcolm Brogdon. There's also some drawbacks that we know very, very evidently as well. Should they sign him? You let me know down in the comment section. Be the GM for me. Yes or no? Join the conversation down in the comment section. Should the Warriors sign Malcolm Brogdon in NBA free agency or not? All right, now let's shift to some news from Warriors Summer League, as that is wrapped up, and we saw for the first time the Warriors 2025 draft selections, Alex Toohey and Will Richard. And I don't know if you see these numbers here and what that kind of correlates to. It looks like a little Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole action there. The first time those numbers are being worn, I guess in Three's case, since CP3 was a part of the roster a couple seasons ago. But it wasn't necessarily a pretty Summer League for either of these two. The efficiencies were pretty brutal, and the counting numbers just were not there. Will Richard definitely more so than Toohey, but these guys couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. It was absolutely atrocious what they were trying to do from the perimeter. 6 of 29 for Will Richard, and he was an above-average three-point shooter at the college level. 4 of 17 from three-point range for Alex Toohey. That is like literally 20%. It's not good at all. 11 for 42 from the field as a whole is even worse, and he really struggled on the offensive end. But these are two players that are going to make their money based on effort and what they can provide on the defensive end and as connecting pieces. They didn't come in here as bona fide sharpshooters, shot creators, guys who are just going to go get you instant buckets, microwave type of scores. No, that's not really these two's archetype. They're coming in and playing hard-nosed defense and giving you a ton of effort on both sides of the floor. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and act like the offense is pretty. I'm not going to blow smoke up you guys and try to say that, Alex Toohey looks like he's going to be a bona fide star for the Golden State Warriors. No, he does not look like that just yet. However, the Warriors staff, and I know, they just drafted the guys like literally a month ago, less than a month ago at this point. They're still very confident in both. The confidence has not wavered in any sense of the imagination, and it should not by any means. Summer League is not a determiner of how good you will be in this NBA, but you gotta know the territory. These guys were taken in the late second round of the 2025 NBA draft, a second round that a lot of people didn't think was very deep. So you're not going to get perfect players here, and they're going to take time to develop. And Lane Wilson had this to say, starting off talking about Alex Toohey, and he said, "First couple games were rough." Yeah, I think they were. But he adapted well and started finding his footing. The story's not written right now. If it were, there'd be plenty of other players that would have been cast off for Summer League performances. We're basically banking on his versatility a little bit, and then his IQ and work ethic to see if we can get a little more with our performance staff that's pretty top-notch. Then he works more and understands he'll need to work out at a different speed and all these things. But overall, we had a guy who was out there that a lot of guys tried to push around, and he wasn't backing down from anybody. You're banking on those kinds of intangibles to be the core of a player and how they can get better. And that's kind of the good news that we can take away from all this, right? Yes, Alex Toohey is easily the bigger project out of the two between he and Will Richard, but he was never coming in as a perfect, finished product type of player. Like, he is going to take, mechanics improvements and coaching and just more teaching and more learning of the game of basketball at this level in order for him to reach his full potential. But like Lane Wilson said, he's got it in between the ears. You can always count on the effort and at least just the lunch pail to work attitude that Alex Toohey is going to bring to your basketball team. Now, on the flip side, Will Richard's got a little bit of a different story, in my opinion. I think he's a little bit closer to being in the Warriors' active rotation, sooner rather than later, as definitely compared to Alex Toohey and how quickly he'll get into the Warriors' rotation. Lane Wilson had this to say on Will Richard. He said, "Yeah, he absolutely has that potential," talking about being in the rotation this season. "Both he and Alex fit that mold of impacting the game without scoring. He can already shoot a little bit, which is great. There were a few games where he was coming up with offensive rebounds. He obviously has pretty good length for a defensive player and could be a little bit of a disruptor. Those are going to be more critical pieces for him moving forward, rather than just being that offensive juggernaut that many people in the NBA are looking for in their draft picks." But Will Richard's not that guy, and that's okay. The Warriors have decent enough shooting on the roster right now, decent enough shooting waiting in the wings in free agency in order for, them to kind of get a elite on-ball defender, an elite disruptor on the roster into the rotation in Will Richard. I already project him as probably a better on-ball defender than like half the guys that Golden State throws off of their bench. So the defensive acumen from Will Richard is going to be what earns him minutes on this Golden State Warriors roster. There's no doubt about it. Who do you guys think plays sooner, though, for the Dubs? I kind of gave you my answer there saying Will Richard. But if you think Alex Toohey is the more pro-ready player for your Dubs, give me an AT down in the comment section. If you think it's Will Richard, though, the Florida national champion, give me a WR down below. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more in just a moment before we wrap up today's show. But I got to tell you about this awesome deal with our friends over at Fanatics. Look, Warriors 2025 playoff shirts are on sale right now. They're literally half off. And I know they didn't win the NBA Finals, but it was still a very successful season. So go get yourself a dripped-out Warriors Win for the Bay playoff t-shirt today at this link, chatsports.com/win4bay. I put that link in the comment section and description of today's video to make it easy for you guys. Go get yourself some Warriors playoff drip right now. Okay, so I didn't really preface what I was going to do with the last couple of minutes that we have on today's show. But I was just scrolling through Twitter as I do, and I was looking at, is there any new Kuminga developments, anything like that? And I saw these couple of tweets from my guy, the B-Ball Sage. He retweeted this one. He had quoted the one that we're going to talk about in just a moment. But I want to go to these numbers, and I want to send a message to Warriors fans, or I should say Jonathan Kuminga fans, because that's what it really seems like you guys are at this point. The ones who are detractors in my comments, you know who you are. I want to just level with you and tell you how good of a basketball player Stephen Curry is, and tell you how mismanaged he has been throughout his entire career, damn near. Andy Bailey puts out this little stat nugget on Steph. He says, during the 4 postseason runs that ended with Warriors championships, they were plus 11.5 points per 100 possessions with Steph on the floor and plus 3 when he was off. So an 8.5 point difference per 100 possessions. You guys don't understand how much that is. That's a boatload. He said he also led the team in playoff wins over replacement in 3 of those 4 postseasons. And in 2022, he had almost 3 times as many as the next Warrior. This guy has been carrying your basketball franchise for a decade, more than a decade, and you treat him this way, prioritizing raw, unproven talent over the guy that is a top 10 fucking basketball player that's ever lived. It is a joke. And that brings me to this tweet right here. And this isn't, shout out my guy, Balt J Hoops. He didn't come up with this. This is a quote from back in 2021. This tweet is 4 years old. 4-year-old tweet. I saw it today. This is a quote from Joe Lacob. Joe Lacob, or not from Joe Lacob, Marcus Thompson, shout out to my guy at The Athletic, he said this. Lacob, is convinced that Wiseman and Kuminga are our future pillars. This is the life after Steph. In 5 years, he thinks these guys are going to be really good. They're going to be the foundation of the team. Yeah. And this is the guy that still believes that you bring back Jonathan Kuminga. This is the guy who still believes that Kuminga could be an all-star on this team. This is the guy who still believes Brandon Podziemski's an all-star level player. He's a shitty talent evaluator. He's terrible at it. And you guys need to come to terms with the fact that not every player the Warriors draft highly is going to be good. Jonathan Kuminga is not good. I'm sorry. I'll say it here right now. And they are honestly a joke. They're laughingstock of the NBA right now because Kuminga is leaving them in limbo. And I don't want to talk too much about it. I don't want to go into too many rabbit holes, but at the end of the day, it's this. Steph Curry is a bona fide top 10 basketball player that's ever walked this earth. And this organization, this ownership group, this front office has done nothing to make his life easier over the past half decade. And it's a damn joke that that's the case. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That will do it for today's edition and little mini rant of War on Warriors today. Lock us in at this link right here, chatsports.com/WarriorsTV. We'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, let's go Dubs.